Welcome back, Jarv.
Hey, I'm so happy it wasn't us.
Yeah,
Just the timing was very suspect.
yeah.
I think this change went out to production, so we could look at uh, the memory profile of the Sidekick
Let's do it.
charts.
Why
Maybe
not?
just add that to the agenda if we can't do it now.
Make it part of the demo.
Yeah. And by the way, the dashboard thing is still not loading for me. The
Talking about
MR
the
that you
test
sent.
dashboard.
Yeah,
Change
did
the
you?
cluster.
Oh, dirt. Right, because zonal. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that. It's supposed to read my mind.
I mean, to be fair, I did drop that as a comment on the issue for the merge request.
Fine, whatever. Sure.
Nice haircut, by the way. You look like you're
It's
ready
the
for the weekend.
last chance, man. They're shutting down everything tomorrow. I'm not kidding. Like
My
full.
wife is still giving me haircuts.
Really? I mean, we
Yeah.
have a curfew, 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. No one can be
Oh
on the street,
goodness.
and everything is shut down now. And it really sucks as my wife's birthday is on the 15th of November, and I haven't bought her anything yet. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Gonna have to get artsy and crafty.
Etsy.com, they ship to anywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's an option, I guess. Um, it's thing.
Since we're waiting for others, why don't you and I have a quick sync up on what's left with the Git SSH migration from the discussion point, since I'll be on vacation all next week.
Sure.
I don't know how much work that you want to take over based on your current workload, but as of right now, pre and staging, the Git shell is enabled for both Alt SSH, well, not in pre, as well as the SSH inbound connections from HA proxy. So those
Yeah,
two environments are set up as appropriately. I'm currently working on developing the change request for Alt SSH in production today. I doubt I'll finish it today, but my thought is that it will be a multi-day change request. We've already got the servers added in HA proxy. We're just waiting to ship traffic over to it. But I
yeah.
was looking at the traffic. Alt SSH doesn't receive anything, dude. Like it's
No, it
mostly
doesn't.
our health checks and pingdom probably. So like I don't know how I'm probably treating this too carefully. Um, but I thought
Yeah, I
I'd do
mean,
a change request anyways because it is a major change in how we shift traffic anyways. Um,
yeah,
but after that, it's just a matter of repeating what we've done so far with Git SSH into production, and that's basically the next step.
yeah. Alt SSH, I feel like we can move quickly to get that into production. It's not like I'm not. It has so little traffic on it.
Yeah.
But I think for Git SSH, we need to finish Git HTTPS first, and
Okay.
because well, actually, like honestly, like all the issues we're having right now are around like Rails, and since Rails isn't part of GitLab shell, Git SSH, it's probably safer. But I don't think I can do both at the same time, is what I'm saying. So I think
Okay.
we're gonna have to. So I can pick it up as soon as Git HTTPS is done,
Okay.
or we'll decide to shelve Git HTTPS and
I think if
transition
you
to
just
yeah.
I think
Hmm.
if you decide to put a pause on the Git HTTPS work, I think pulling the Git SSH would be beneficial, simply because it's one of those where it's very lightweight. Like I was staring at metrics the other day. These pods don't use any resources. It's
Yeah,
almost
I know.
astonishing. I feel like I'm
Well,
horribly
yeah.
over provisioned, which has me mildly excited because then we could kind of maybe consider removing an entire node pool that we've spun up for all of this. Um, and then obviously
Yeah.
we need to tune the pods themselves, um, because it's only a proxy, so like it's not going to do a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's fine. I guess can we let's go over the blockers and talk about
Sure.
what blockers are left also for Git SSH specifically. So
I haven't added anything to our document about blockers.
So yeah, let's go through the list first, and then we'll look at the full list.
Cool.
So
So yeah, I
for
added
build-
a comment on the build logs one. So it was in yesterday's release. So it is running. Marin's added another comment. They have a few issues that they're working through. So
Yeah, I figured I wouldn't touch any more Sidekick work until after I got back from vacation anyways. So that
Yeah.
might be helpful.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Cool. They have a couple of things on that Epic, Marin, that have a 13.6 milestone. They had a tick, but
don't get too focused on the actual milestone. That is only a target for them. They're
okay, fine.
out as they go along. So as soon as we hit 100% traffic there, we can call this unblocked, right? Which will probably happen next week. And then they have a lot of cleanup tasks, a lot of additional tasks that are going to happen within the milestones they set.
Cool. That makes sense. Great.
Okay. So we close this issue in favor of the new issue, right? For the service. So let me replace the link. So this is assigned to Jason. Last update. I can share my screen if that helps. I think we'll need to talk to Jason to see what he's thinking for this right now and how long it's going to take.
Sorry, I thought that was in progress.
As far as I know, it's in progress. He's working on it. I don't know. 13.6, like maybe he's thinking, but I mean, it was 13.5 before, right?
Okay. Amy, could you take a follow-up to figure out what's happening with that? Because I don't see any update anywhere, and I see a closed issues left and right. So I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that one.
Thanks.
I'm going to say we take off the Prometheus metrics for GitLab Shell. Scarbeck, do you agree?
Actually, I was going to ask about this again.
Okay.
My thought was that maybe we could create a one-off container that we add that runs alongside GitLab Shell. I don't know if this is supported in our Helm chart yet, but Ben just recently fixed the MTEL metrics for the GitLab Shell, so we now have a fancy dashboard. It's a temporary dashboard that he stood up that we're at least getting some visibility into things. Here, I'll post the dashboard here real quick. And this actually has me mildly excited that maybe we could just use that same configuration, open up MTEL and create a sidecar container and at least get metric data off of it. I'm not set on this. This is just mainly a question. Maybe if we have time, we could do this alongside if we're waiting on something. But otherwise, the only view we have into GitLab Shell is parsing our logs, which is not the easiest thing to do, but possible.
But
I don't consider this. I
Yeah.
consider this a nice to have versus a blocker, but it.
Yeah, that's why I kind of want to take it off the highlight list. I mean, maybe we can even
Okay.
leave the blocker label on, but
Okay.
I don't see this as a blocker for us going to Canary or starting to take a percentage of traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a blocker for all SSH because it doesn't take any traffic, so I didn't have any qualms with that. So I'm okay with removing it.
Okay.
And but it is a blocker for production. Is that what we're saying?
I think we need to make a decision whether it will be before we. So maybe we just put it on the epic and make a note that it's going to be something we should decide on later before we go all in
Okay.
for production.
All right. It is already noted as a blocker on the epic, so there's that at least.
How about this? Because this depends on others. We figure out the severities priorities as if it was a blocker. Put that on that issue and get them into the prioritization process there. We can continue our work separate from that because we aren't sure whether it will block us immediately, but we do want to have it regardless. So we can move past it, but get the rest of the teams to actually work on it. Does that work?
Yeah.
What would the severity be on that issue?
I would put it at a 2 right now because we're getting close.
All right, let's do it too.
I guess if we discover that they can't get this done in a reasonable time, would creating our own sidecar container be a reasonable sidestep that gets us this information?
Nope.
Okay, just remain blocked until then.
Remain blocked. Like we need to escalate this.
Okay.
The idea we have for our OKRs, I just need to remind everyone, is unmodified Helm charts. That means it needs to be a part of Helm charts. Like whatever we do or try to do, it needs to be supported in Helm charts as vanilla as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
This final one I added on, I feel like it's linked to something, but I'm afraid I haven't yet managed to link it. But this was the epic that Jason pinged us on in Slack the other day.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, again, like really needs to get done. I would say like this should be a blocker for the front end, but maybe not a blocker for the current work we're doing. We're handling it okay for now, not having the ability to filter out different log files in our log outputs, but you know, I think we would like to have that.
I agree. I think this is very painful for investigating incidents, and it's just adding a lot of garbage inside of Elasticsearch, so it's irritating the observability team, but it should not be a blocker for today's work.
I would love to know when it's going to be completed. So if we can maybe get an idea of how much work it is. I thought it wasn't going to take that much work because at least someone is already using it.
Yeah.
So,
Did they mention that in Slack? I can't remember. If not, I can follow up.
yeah, I just, yeah, maybe I just don't know how many other things is on, I guess, Robert's plate. So if this is like his highest priority thing or whether it's like a background task.
I can follow up and find out.
Yeah.
And ask for you, please direct all of these things into issues and epics.
Mm-hmm.
If you came in with an epic in the channel, that's okay. But at the same time, that question is not actually asked in the epic. I cannot find that comment now anywhere because we passed it, and it's going to be impossible to actually track down what's happening. So it's okay to ping people in Slack to highlight something as long as things are also written out in a persistent location. So for discoverability. So same thing for the GitLab shell item. We want to write down, why is this a severity 2? We don't have to say we are going to continue doing the other things regardless. We just want to explain why this is a severity 2. Write it there, escalate there, and then we can link elsewhere in Slack asking like, hey, can someone help see or do something, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks.
I have a new one, which I just opened up right before this last incident. This is related to all my investigation on why we're a little bit slow when pods start. And one thing I found is that, hey, it looks like it takes 2 minutes for database load balancing to come online when a pod starts, which means that we use just the primary database for 2 minutes. And then like after that, then we start using the replicas. This definitely would slow us down. I don't know yet whether it's the reason why, it's the only reason why we're slow on pod start, but it's something we need to figure out. It looks like from what I see in the logs, right? It says like there's no secondaries available. It looks like it did the query to console and got a host length of 0. That's a little strange to me because console is running in a separate namespace on a separate set of pods. Like that's not like going away during upgrade, so it's still there. Could it be just a race condition? I'm not sure. We need to kind of dig into this a bit more. Maybe we're not polling frequently enough, so we need to poll more frequently on start so that we can get the replicas initialized right away. And I also think I think there's an argument here that we really shouldn't be ready until we have the replicas online. I know that like for safety, maybe you want to revert to the primary if the replicas aren't there, but for GitLab.com, that makes absolutely no sense because if our replicas go away, we're completely down. Like the primary database can't handle all of the load anyway. So if you have thoughts on this, just add them to the issue, I guess, and we'll try to flesh this out a bit. And as far as priority and severity, I mean, it seems like it's pretty high, but maybe it's a little bit early to say.
I would argue that we put this to the highest severities, but once we actually get to the bottom of, not to the bottom of, but get a better idea of what's happening, because right now reading the issue, I'm really not sure what's happening, whether it's even GitLab to begin with, the application rather, or it's something else. So it would be good to kind of investigate that a bit and maybe, just maybe, figure out whether scalability can help. Craig Miskell, for example, is excellent with this. So
sure, yeah. Let me see if I can I can simply just see if I'm able to do DNS queries before Rails can. So I'll play around with this to see, and we'll see if it belongs in the application. I think at least for the application, though, I think there could be this argument that we have a configuration flag that says, hey, don't be ready until database replicas come online, right?
I mean, the application is not ready, right? So
yeah, I mean, it can, but falling back to the primary, I can see that being nice for safety, but in our case, it's it's not reasonable. Like we can't survive.
No.
Yeah.
Like we take our infra down then.
Yeah.
I'd suggest paralyzing a tiny bit. Jarv, it's Friday afternoon, so sure, continue investigating this, but Amy, maybe reach out to Rachel as soon as possible to see whether Craig can take a look Monday his time, start looking into this Monday his time, because by the time he's offline, Jar comes online, so we have at least a better idea of what is happening so that we can escalate this further up.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I'll follow up.
Okay, let's just go quickly through the other issues. The JE Malik, this was just deployed to production right before the last incident, which had Scarbeck and I freak out because we thought it was related, but it wasn't. Everything seems fine there. We're going to demo, actually we're going to do this live. We'll just see what the memory impact was on Sidekick after this change. The memory impact on staging was quite good. I saw a very noticeable decrease in memory utilization. So that hopefully is promising. Cloud native build logs we discussed. Web service generator pattern we discussed. Pages we didn't discuss, but I think we know what's going on there, right? Pages is on it,
story
being
that's
worked on.
Ongoing. Yeah.
This readiness check, this is in my court and is what I'm currently investigating. I'm gonna just give this to myself right now. I added this delay, so right now we're delaying 60 seconds before we we're delaying 60 seconds before a pod can be marked as ready. It's not yet clear if that actually helped at all. So I think we have multiple problems, this load balancing thing being another problem. I might close this for now until we have more information. This one we discussed, unstructured logs. Is there anything more to do with this one? I mean, I don't know. Like, I think I should just block. I should remove this from the Kubernetes blocker. I don't think we are going to do anything more with this. We have the environment variable that we're setting.
Well, no, not necessary. Let's do it differently. I see some things missing here. For example, we can say infradev is missing. And severities are missing. So this is not even showing up on any radars, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have it on our list either. So I think it's probably worth us, like, I don't think I know, like, what's the impact of this and when is it going to hit?
I don't think it's infradev because it's not linked to availability, right? And I think like for us, we're kind of fine because we've already disabled unstructured logs with an environment variable.
Okay.
But what else should we do with this? You know.
Now then remove Kubernetes blocker because we then have an option. This needs to happen for self-managed. So
Yeah.
I can't force people to implement this. We already shown that it's important, right?
I mean, I can just add a note saying that, hey, we did this for GitLab.com, we're fine. So I think that's enough argument to say, let's just turn it off by default. But
yeah, and maybe put a severity because it actually does, like for any serious installation, it does duplicate things too much, right? Causes additional cost for customers. But we can remove the blocker.
And this proxy request buffering issue, we haven't decided yet what we are going to do here. Right now it's turned off globally, but the discussion here was about whether we want to turn it on for web and API. It's turned off for Git HTTPS. Some people are saying like, okay, we have Cloudflare in front anyway. It's not going to be necessary. I don't know. I would say it's the right priority. Let's leave the blocker label on. It's not high on my, it's not like on my radar right now.
It could be good if we could agree of whether we need to do something or not. I think that's probably the bit that I'd like to see next, is if we actually, like, because if we don't, then great, we can close it. But if we do, then it would be helpful for at least someone to know they have to do something.
Yeah, I think it would be, I guess for the service split that Jason is working on, I assume we are only using a single Nginx controller. Maybe it would be nice if we could turn off request or toggle proxy request buffering for each different path. So yeah, I can link it to that issue and we can see. I'm not convinced we can leave it turned off yet for the front end, but yeah, it's just not something I'm thinking about right now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I think that's it for the blockers. Oh yeah, and there's an item here for GitLab pages, so that's good. I'm going to move the JEmalloc stuff to the top of the demo because it'll be shorter. So let's first take a look at the Sidekick memory utilization. Okay, so for the full deployment of memory bound, where do project mirrors run? Scarbeck, do you know off the top of your head?
Catch all.
Catch all? Well, it does not look like we have any significant decrease in used memory for, maybe it's too early to say. Maybe there is like,
I think it's too early to say. I think we
yeah,
need to
it
wait
did
at
drop
least
a little
another
bit
2
here though.
hours.
Yeah. I think I would like to roll this out for web service as well, if it's good on Sidekick, just because this is where I noticed this is where I noticed it on staging, where how we reduced memory. I can show you. Here. This is where it rolled out. You can see like before memory would kind of like at least 10, and now we're like down in like 8 gigabytes.
It's still a bit crazy though. It's a serious
Crazy.
amount
Seems
of
awfully
RAM.
high.
Yeah.
This is all pods, not just one.
Ah, I see. Okay.
This is looking at across all of these.
Whew, man, my heart skipped a beat there for a second. I was thinking, imagine like 100 pods on this as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank God.
That's not that bad.
Okay, it's not that bad then. Okay, it's doable.
Do we have a problem in staging? I see a bunch that are in terminating state.
Yeah, like
It's mirroring? Which one? Pull or push?
no, we're just looking at web service. This is
Ah,
not
web service.
Sidekick. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. We can take a closer look.
Maybe a deploy just went out. Maybe that's
Yeah, keep in mind staging is like constantly doing stuff. So I think it's likely that it's just a
yeah. There's
deployment.
a deploy started a little while ago. That's
Okay,
probably what
then
it is.
that's probably why then. Okay. What I wanted to show for the next part of the demo is deleting a web service pod in production.
We often don't cause problems in production, but when we do it
Yeah.
on Friday.
When we do it on
And
Friday.
it's
Right.
part of a demo.
And it's part of a demo. Yeah. Let me just prepare this second. Okay, so we're looking at US East 1B. Looking at the pods on US East 1B, you can see that we have GitLab shell. These guys aren't taking any traffic yet, correct, Scarbeck? right? Like not even for Alt SSH.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the Nginx ingress controllers, and then we have a bunch of web service pods. You can see that they've all been up for a while. I did a test earlier, that's why this guy's only 67 minutes. So I'll just pick one and delete him. This takes a long time because we have this very long wait, this very long blackout window, like of 2 minutes. So the kubectl pod delete doesn't come back right away. It takes like 2 minutes. So while that's happening, in another window, we can take a look. To see, hopefully that another pod will start coming up,
Use a
which it
watch
has.
with the filter, man.
Why? Oh, you want to just like, okay. Well, so you can see that this guy's coming up right now. And he's very slow. To wait a little bit longer. Keep in mind, we also added this like delay for the readiness so that pods are even taking longer than they used to.
So we are not conclusive on that still, right? Like whether that's helpful.
No, I would say I'm leaning more towards it didn't do anything. So I'm considering backing it off a bit to. Although, like, I mean, when you look at our deploy times, it didn't, like, we're still much better than the virtual machine, so it didn't really slow us down that much.
I mean, sure, but if it's not doing anything, then it's right, like worth removing it.
What was it meant to do?
So this is like an artificial delay that we injected into the Kubernetes configuration to say, don't pass the readiness until like 60 seconds. So wait 60 seconds before passing the readiness check. And what the thought here was that we were passing the readiness check too soon. And because of that, we were sending traffic to the pods too quickly, which then was causing our apdex to drop. Now that I've sort of dug into this a bit more, I think it might be more related to this load balancing issue than that, but there's so many variables here, it's hard to tell.
Jar, is it possible to sit down and write down what we tried, what we didn't in one single place, and what we are currently taking? Because I think everything is spread through a couple of issues, and I mean, it's nearly impossible to follow everything.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I do have. Let me.
Because I'm wondering whether we need to involve additional folks to help us out here.
Yeah. So here, this issue is the canonical issue that I'm using for troubleshooting this. It does have a recent update here. I'm just keeping the description up to date, and these are the two things that we tried so far. I'll update this with the load balancing thing as well. So we terminated a pod. I wanted to show first the, now I lost my, so you can see here are 50th and 95th percentile of latency for Rails. And you can see it just drops off. So this is nice. Like there's no increase at the end right as it gets terminated. This is one thing I was concerned about initially, was that like terminating pods maybe isn't safe. I also have errors here. So you can see like, oh, this looks kind of bad, but actually if you look at the, if I pin all, go to discover, hopefully this works. And this column, you can see that all of these errors are just the health controller. So it's not like users are seeing errors here. It's just the readiness check failing. So that's good. That means that there's like no customer errors from terminating the pod.
Well, I have a question. Why
Mhm.
would we be doing health checks against a pod that is in a terminating state?
Because when you terminate a pod, we first send this term signal, which then tells Puma to enter this. I can't remember if it's grace period or blackout window, but whatever we call it, it's like the blackout window, which says that it will return 503s for the readiness check for however long, while still processing connection. So this is basically that window being shown here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sorry, I'm distracted. There's children playing in my yard.
Oh, should yell at them.
I'm not going to be an old grumpy man.
Okay, well, anyway, it's the same for workhorse. Now, what's more interesting is looking at the pod that's coming up. So let's take a look at that guy. I'll also make sure he doesn't have errors. And then we'll also do the same for workhorse. So yeah, so you see here, like when the pod starts, like we have like these latency spikes in the beginning, and this will eventually settle.
What's a good response time from workhorse? Because you were showing me a couple hundred milliseconds, which doesn't sound terrible from my perspective, but you probably know this better than I do.
Okay, so let's take a look at this is workhorse, and we'll just take a look at all Kubernetes pods.
Okay. So yesterday, when that incident flared up with a deploy that went out, I did some log diving for just a select pod that was introduced as part of the new deploy. And I was seeing the very first customer response that we received by or processed by that pod had a response time of over 700 milliseconds.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we see there. The issue that we're seeing, so there's kind of like two things here. One is that when we do a deploy, our latencies are really bad, and they're much worse than if you just terminate a single pod. And I think the reason for that is that for whatever reason, and we don't understand, it looks like that traffic, it looks like that we're terminating old pods before the new pods are ready. If I just terminate a single pod, I see like a little bit of a latency spike when it first starts, but it gets much more pronounced when we do these rolling updates where we are surging a new set of pods, waiting for those to come online. And then as soon as they come online, then we terminate the old pods. It looks to me that because the latency always happens on the new pods, that maybe too much traffic is shifting before the new pods are ready. And that's what we're looking at right now.
Do we get to control, we get to control how many pods cycles through, right? Like,
yeah, so we have like two knobs here. One is the surge, which is we use the Kubernetes default of 25%. So what happens is like it'll create 25% more pods, wait for those to be ready. And I'm pretty sure that means passing both health checks for Workhorse and Rails. And as soon as they're ready, then it starts terminating the old pods. And we just set it so that the maximum unavailable number is 0. So it should never terminate more pods than like the minimum number of replicas that we have set, which is 50. What's interesting is that it seems like it's terminating pods before the new pods are like ready to process traffic. It could very well be related to this load balancing thing. I mean, this like having a sudden surge of requests going to all of these pods that aren't using load balancing, that aren't using the load balancing replicas does sound pretty nasty.
So we should see a spike in database calls during a deployment, correct?
I think for the primary, we might see it. I don't know. I think the bigger issue though is that yeah, that they're slow. I don't think that they're timing out, but yeah, I think like we should see a small spike in database calls in the primary.
We should see a small spike on the primary and a small drop on our secondaries.
On the replicas, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's hard to tell like if this is going to register.
Yeah.
I mean, given how much other database traffic we have.
So are we setting the grace period for termination anywhere?
Yes. Yes,
How
we
long
are.
is it?
We set it to 2 minutes.
That should be sufficient. I don't get it.
No, this part is fine though. Like terminating a pod is clean. Like I don't see any errors. I don't see any latency. It's starting a new pod that is the problem.
I see.
or more specifically, it's not starting a new pod, right? It's the deciding to terminate another pod decision, right? It's
it's like starting.
It's ready and it can terminate something else, which is why you won't see it on a single pod.
Yeah, so it's like we spike up new pods with a surge, like 25% more pods, and then Kubernetes is like removing the old pods, and it seems like we are at reduced capacity at that point. Even though it's keeping the replica count constant, it's keeping it at 50. It seems like the new pods that are coming up aren't quite ready to take on traffic before it starts terminating the old ones, even though the readiness is passing. So this is what we're kind of unsure of right now, is like why are these new pods not ready to take traffic?
We should be able to get this information out of Stackdriver. So we should put together a report of just precisely that, alongside of working with this database situation.
What do you think you'd want to see in Stackdriver for this?
I hate Stackdriver, but we should be able to see where a pod transitions into a non-ready state being terminated. We should also see when a pod goes from running but not ready, and we'll see it transition from not ready to ready.
So so we can I can kind of show you. So here's the pod that we just launched. So first it runs its configured container. Here's the pod coming up, right? So this is the first thing. This is why I opened that issue. It's like, oh, look at that. No secondaries are available for load balancing. So it's using the primary here. Still coming up. We always see this error, and I think you noticed this before, Scarbeck, as well.
I did comment on that because I didn't know what to do with that information.
I think we should talk to Camille about this, or, you know. This is listening for SIG-USR2. So now it's coming. Okay, so now it's binding to the socket.
Metric starts up, and then we start seeing our Prometheus scrapes.
Yeah. That in there too.
And like all this looks normal. But Stack
Yeah.
Driver will tell us what the Kubernetes API does. It'll tell us that a pod is in a ready or not ready state. It'll tell us when it transitions between those states for all pods. And it'll take a long time because we are running 50 to 100 pods, but we should be able to prove whether or not things are being removed or added to this endpoints controller too early.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, look at, so we have 1347 is when it starts.
Yeah.
And then the readiness check passes at, that's a liveness, readiness 13, so 1349, so 2 full minutes. And I
Yeah,
assume
which
like
makes
before
sense.
this, right, it's not healthy until here. But the load balancer, like the replicas aren't put
Yeah, where does
online, I
that come
think.
into play? Is that somewhere on here?
Let's see. So this happened
48.
48. Let me
That's still
find
during the boot up
this.
part.
I have the logs. So we want like host is online. Hmm. So 1349. So I guess like, then I guess it's fairly close then. So maybe that's maybe
off
that's not too
by
bad.
a
Yeah.
60-second window, but like at this point, it should start receiving traffic prior to it having populated those replicas.
Yeah. And this is the first real request we get right here.
Yep.
So I don't know. I think we need to dig into this a bit more. But for now, this is really difficult because when I have 75% of the traffic going for Git HTTPS, occasionally we're seeing these aptX alerts on deployment. So I've scaled that back for now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I think we should try and find the cause of this, but if it holds us up for a lot, like what would happen if we rolled out through the fleet to a smaller percentage? Like the impact would be smaller, I presume.
Yeah, so right now I've scaled back our traffic to like around 30%. And this is like, so there's much less of impact during deployments. But I think we should still keep some of the traffic to the cluster because this is our best way to troubleshoot these kind of problems. So I think we'll just stay where we are now.
Cool. Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we've got 2 things to investigate, right? One is do we trust the readiness check? I think it's probably one. Like, does a passing readiness check really mean ready? And then the other one, maybe
the load balancer thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason made it sound like the readiness check is really dumb and doesn't actually validate very much.
What do you mean it doesn't validate much? Oh, you mean like
it'll return a 200, but it's not checking anything inside of the application.
Yeah, it doesn't. It is very dumb. It doesn't check much.
It's more like, hey, I can respond to the readiness endpoint. Here's a 200. Have at it.
Yeah, like without this artificial delay that delays the readiness for like a minute, it will pass as soon as we bind to the port. As soon as Puma binds to the port, it will pass right away. So that's why we moved it forward a bit. But I'm kind of surprised and a little bit confused about why we're still seeing these errors on deploy. I think I was talking to Grain this morning about it, and he's also confused. So we'll have to keep digging into it.
Do we Maybe we should check our virtual machines to see if they suffer the same issue with the DB connection pool query when they first start up.
I was wondering about that.
That would
Like
rule
when
out
we,
Rails being weird.
yeah, yeah,
Or
we
confirm
can
Rails
do
as
this.
being
We can
weird.
do this easily on staging. We can just do a hop. So you're thinking like when we do a hop, which gets translated into eventually into a SIGINT for Puma, whether we see the same database load balancing logs. Yeah, that's I can try that on staging.
I'm curious if this is a common thing and we just noticed it inside of our Kubernetes infrastructure.
Yeah, I have a
Since our
feeling
VMs
that
are a lot beefier and have more threads, they probably handle the additional workload than a single pod might. Or we also have HA proxy that will have drained that node while it's still booting.
yeah, Graham's theory was that like there has to be some differences between spinning up like a brand new pod and having a VM where you're just hopping Puma. And maybe there's just some slow warm up. Like, is it a cache? Is it DNS? Is it something that is causing us to be much slower on start than we're used to?
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Do
that's
you
not a
want me
very,
to?
yeah.
Do you want me to attempt to go through Sidekick to prove or disprove that Kubernetes is doing the right thing in terms of timing with pods during a deployment? It would take all day because logs and
Yeah,
stack drivers suck, but like I'd be willing to do it.
I don't know. I would say like this is your last day before you go on vacation. Should end on a high note.
I mean, it will end on a high note when I end my day and I go to Goodberries to get some ice cream.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think I don't think I would spend too much time on it
Okay,
if
it'll
this is
take too
your,
long.
yeah.
Or keep it as like a backup option, and if like through next week we don't get any further with any of the other ideas, then we know we've got one last thing that we can try out the week after.
Sounds good.
Cool. That's pretty much all I have. Scribeck, do you have anything else?
The only thing that was on the agenda for me was discussing what's next with Git SSH, which you and I dabbled on. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything else to discuss with it now at this point.
What did you decide on that one? I just joined towards the end of it.
It's going to determine whether Jard puts a pause on the Git HTTPS work. If he does, GitLab shell is a great thing to at least roll out through production. Otherwise, just wait till I get back.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Sounds good.
In the meantime, I'll keep preparing the necessary change requests and get stuff ready and make sure the issues are in tip-top shape. But yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
Cool. Sounds good. Can we just have a very quick look and check that we have the right things on the board, the delivery board? I'm sorry, I'm sure I have it open, but here we go.
Amy, I did, unrelated to this work, but I did unassign myself from that container registry deployment
Oh, okay.
issue,
Yeah, that's fine.
just because it still looks like we're continuing to have that discussion. So.
Yeah, I think we're going to still be talking. That's, yeah, totally fine. Nice. Cool. So I think, so we've got a few things still in progress, which I think that looks correct. Do we need to do anything with this action cable issue?
I think that still needs to be blocked because we're waiting on the service, the charts issue for splitting out services.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. And that's the bottom of this. Oh.
Do we have that blocker linked inside of this issue?
No, we don't actually. No. Okay, cool. So, right, that was making progress. Good. And then, are these the right things to have up next? So, Git SSH definitely.
It sounds like we could delete the 1274, the MTL side container, based on what we just discussed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you want to add a comment to that, Sky? I can just.
Yeah, I could close that.
Cool, thanks. Oh, sorry. I'm using my touchpad. I normally have a mouse. Cool. What would be probably the thing that might be useful, and actually, Skybeck, it might be good to get some of your input if you've got like half an hour today, is just on the things like the documenting, how to debug multi-cluster. If we just put in some thoughts about what we're hoping to achieve with that, so we've got kind of some rough exit criteria. So
Jarv has already created some excellent documentation. I don't know what else to add at this point.
On the, sorry, I meant on the actual issue, like, is this list of things like everything we need? Like, because I guess it could just be something we could run forever, right? Keep documenting forever, but to give this kind of some sort of framing.
Yeah, I was thinking about for logs. I'm not sure if we really need to do anything here because the log location hasn't changed. Yeah, I think we can fold that into just a general, like, how do you troubleshoot using logs? Like,
Okay.
you know, whether it's the Kubernetes cluster or VMs, because it's the same index. Most of the, I mean, application logs look the same, except for Kubernetes, you have a few extra fields, like the pod name, the image version, things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Scarbeck, do you think, I was going to do, the next thing I have to do is the architecture update to include the zonal clusters. When I'm done with that, is there anything more that you think we should do?
I don't know. That's why I didn't have anything else to add to that issue.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
I'll probably just tie it off at that then.
Okay, makes sense. I think the big thing I've got in my mind is around making sure the cluster, the region names are really clear, so that people can, like, really quickly when we see an issue like on A, for example, we know what that is and we know how broad the impact is going to be from that. Like, you know, is it a regional?
I think all of our infrastructure engineers are pretty clear on what a region or a zone would be. So I think they would know precisely what they need to troubleshoot if they come across that style of situation. Maybe if anything, Jarv, maybe send the final set of docs over to review by the current on call, just to have another set of eyeballs look at it, just to make sure that we address any questions they may have. Since we're familiar with this stuff, I don't know what else to add, but they might have additional questions I haven't thought about.
Yeah.
Something to consider. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Okay.
Great. Very nice. Anything else we wanted to go through today?
Happy Halloween.
Yep. Happy Halloween. Enjoy your vacation, Skavek. And thanks for the demo, Jarv. That was really, really good to see and really interesting. So.
Cool.
All right. Catch you all later. Take care.
Bye, all.